All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case over on Rumble, of course. So we have to wait a few seconds. All of my tabs, I believe, are open and ready to go. Lots and lots to cover today, from the new UFO scare, which I've covered for a couple of days, like the basic backdrop of that. Also, the train derailment. That's definitely major news. Wasn't a few days ago. I got tipped off about it, but at the time, nobody was really reporting on it. I'm like, oh, it's a interesting explosion of fire there. It turns out that there are more chemicals in that than originally estimated. Whoops. Yeah, it's safe to go back to your folks, your homes, folks. Norfolk Southern claims that it tested its own waste and found nothing wrong. The Black National Anthem, of course, and other things. So let's see if we're live on Rumble. Yes, indeed. As you can tell, I'm going for the Rivendell look, today. Let's go, Mr. Tarl, says Danielle Marika over on Rumble. Hashtag soon, says Bana Layman, and so forth and so forth. Lots and lots of clank. Lots and lots of news to cover today. It's full of craziness, actually. Anyway, we'll get started right away because we have to talk about the UFO scare. I analyzed this earlier and the other day. Here is what we know about the unidentified object shot down over North America. This is CNN Politics article. So basically, you know nothing about them, just to be clear. We know that a Chinese spy balloon transited over the North American continent, including Canadian airspace. But Trudeau had to ask the U.S. for help with the third object, actually. An F-22 from the U.S. Air Force is what shot it down. It's in Canadian airspace over the far northern territories, of course, to be fair. But the Canadians, they don't have the firepower, the logistics to deal with it, which I thought was very funny. You're asking fucking Biden for military help. There might be a problem. This is the fourth object as of today. Of course, over Lake Huron, it crossed into U.S. airspace over water and was shot down. It appears that these are all balloons, but they're not ruling anything out. They're calling them UFOs, which is actually proper. UFO means unidentified flying object. It does not mean little green men. It does not mean high tech. It doesn't mean a flying saucer. It just means that there's something flying around up there and you don't know what it is. So a meteor is a UFO if you can't readily identify it. A plane is a UFO. A balloon can be a UFO. Swamp gas can famously be a UFO, of course. It could be any of a number of things, but people are leaning towards balloon. Now, as I analyzed this morning, I think that there are two ways to explain why there would suddenly be a cluster of unidentified flying objects over the North American continent. The first is that China is testing various prototypes. They're trying to develop new balloons. And of course, you have to deploy them somewhere. If you're deploying them from China, the prevailing winds will tend to take them over North America. So they're testing prototypes. The other possibility is that Western nations at this point are using the original spy balloon, which was Chinese. That was tracked long enough for us to know that. And they're testing prototypes of their own, which would be rather funny. This latest object, which resulted in a no-fly zone temporarily for several hours, was octagonal, oddly enough, and had apparently, this is according to eyewitness reports, strings dangling down from it. It didn't appear to have anything underneath it, though. It could have fallen off in the Arctic. It could have fallen off in the ocean. It'd be funny. The Chinese are testing a new spy prototype, and the payload actually accidentally eases itself over the ocean before it gets to its target. They will learn from this lesson. Here's the thing. It's a panic. People are panicking the same way they did about UFOs back in the 1950s. If you've looked at the history of sort of the UFO mythology, etc., it really peaks around then. It also beforehand peaks many, many decades earlier during the early reign of hot air balloons. People were seeing strange things over their ranches back long before the telephone was invented, by the way. It's also being used as a political distraction. You have new material, for example, not just the train derailment, which is definitely being covered up a bit at the moment, but from the Biden document scandal. Of course, they're querying new documents that may have been held in Boston. They're saying up front they don't expect anything classifieds in there, but they're interested in perusing those documents and seeing what's there. which means there may very well be more classified documents a la the Biden administration. Big bombshell today. I talked about it this morning. Biden's now blaming staffers and claiming that these are just stray papers. Why they were included and why his staffers are so fucking stupid that since 1975, they've been missing this paperwork and its classified headers, of course, was not followed up on by the legacy media. It is an interesting story, though, these UFOs, mainly because of the public response. People are suddenly distracted by this. It's like, again, it's the shiny tinsel that you wave in front of the kitty. Distracts them from whatever else they were doing. Stormy Nova. Clank. The Grizzly. Jesus, it's like everything bad could and did happen in the span of 2 weeks. Clearly, the goofball administration is working as intended. Honk, honk, honkity clown world. Yeah, I mean, it shows ineptitude. All these other balloons might be cope. Basically, the first balloon manages to penetrate U.S. airspace. You're too much of a pussy to shoot it down. And so you send up some of your own balloons in the general area, and then you shoot them down just to show that you can, that you're one of the big boys. That is a possibility. When things like this happen, they tend to be cover for something else that's occurring. So they're trying to shove it out of the news cycle, or it's some sort of military test or something. This was the case in the 1950s, too. I'm a song. The Ohio situation is starting to sound like another Centralia, Pennsylvania situation at best, and another Bhopal disaster at worst. I would compare it to 9/11, when first responders and people living in the area were told, "Don't worry, the air is perfectly safe to breathe." Oh, you got you got fibro? Whoops. Robot trucker. How do you intend to raise your daughter in terms of religion? Comparative religion. Learn about them all, preach none of them. I think that's the wisest way to go. Salte, it's funny the NFL pretended it was 2001, being all patriotic, acting like 2020 didn't happen, despite the end racism BLM grift plastered on the field. Yes, we'll be talking about the Black National Anthem and why people actually should not be outraged by it. If you actually look into it a little bit more, it's a kind of an interesting piece of history. I'm not getting the moral outrage from people who are more traditionalistic, especially, I mean, you're watching sports ball. It's literally just a corporate shit fest. It's a grift fest of corporations selling you shit while a bunch of dudes in spandex run around the field patting each other's asses. Give me a break. Let them propagandize if they want to. They've been doing that since day one anyway. Yeah, to Darren Turner, Trudeau is taking credit for ordering the shootdown, which is interesting because I do not believe that the Prime Minister of Canada can command U.S. aircraft to shoot down foreign objects. Apparently, he's coping a little bit. Motion Mark, I think it's possible. Nothing is actually a distraction. It could just be that events are speeding up. Well, yeah, I mean, they have been for some time, but it is a little bit of bread and circus as well. Next news story. This is the big one of the day, of course. Oh, actually, we've got a couple on Rumble. S.J. Whitney. Hello, Mr. Warwick. Your midday just happens to be late night end of my day. Here's a nice deep fake I made of how you will look someday. And there is a Dropbox thing there. I will review that later. Thank you. Hidden Angels will make great pets. And King of Biltong, again, good morning from Anton's in Roanoke, Texas. You've got to eat the jerky. So now we have our big news of the day. I wanted to start off with the UFO thing because, you know, Lake Huron shoot down for the U.S. audience. Of course, it's important. There is something, in my opinion, more important happening currently in Ohio. And I do mean currently happening. I realize the derailment was a week ago, but this is a big fucking story. There's a link in the description, not archived, because this is from the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus. Yes, the Libertarians siding with the left environmentalists, the right tradcon sort of end times people, and basically everyone else in the population and wondering what the fuck is going on. East Palestine, Ohio, about a week ago. A train derails, and it was carrying a bunch of chemicals that they're hazardous. Vinyl chloride specifically. It's a carcinogen. In an enclosed container, if it takes on too much energy and it's an anaerobic environment, it can result in an explosion. And Norfolk Southern, which is the railway that's managing this particular area, really screwed the pooch. They're doing their own testing, by the way, and they're claiming that everything's a-okay. This following in the wake several days later from a legacy media reporter. Now, imagine, legacy media journo from local outlet is trying to cover what the fuck is happening here with the train derailment. Gets arrested, gets detained, actually. Governor himself, I think, came out and said, well, I didn't authorize this. Every journalists are allowed to report on what's happening. I'm seeing anecdotal tales of fish die-offs, including video, which is helpful. I'm seeing anecdotal tales of people's chickens, etc., dying in the general vicinity of this particular incident. We'll get into the incident itself in a moment. People complaining of respiratory problems, eye irritation, skin irritation, nasal irritation, etc. And then I see, that the company itself is apparently empowered to do its own environmental testing. The EPA blindsides them. When's the last time that the EPA got off its ass, did its job, and were actually the ones trying to bring some sort of clarity to a situation? You've got to have one hell of a goddamn disaster before the EPA are the good guys, quote unquote. They come in and say, oh, well, we found additional chemicals at the site. It's not just the vinyl chloride that you were carrying. It seems like there are some other trace elements as well. Can you say Superfund site that'll become a grift for the next 50 fucking years? That is their side of the grift. The fact is that vinyl chloride, when it combusts and then interacts with moisture, can create hydrochloric acid. That's the problem. You're going to get a little bit of acid rain downwind. You're also going to get some other goodies because the EPA has said, oh, by the way, there were other materials there, all of which are carcinogenic in nature. Here's what will happen from here on out with this case. They blew holes in the side of the containment units, the actual cars, after digging a trench, and then they drained the material in there to keep it from exploding, which kind of is sensible if you would prefer to dilute the disaster over hundreds of miles instead of it being a local super disaster. But they wanted to clear the railway, so they had to drain the material out. They set it on fire. Here's the problem. It's just gross incompetence, number one. It appears to be at least a quasi cover-up, number two. They're harassing people that are trying to record, the crews that are going out and working, et cetera, et cetera. Number three, here's my prediction. Over the next 10 to 15 years, you're going to see a massive rise in cancer cases, and it won't just be related, by the way, to this one little locality. When they combusted the material, yes, some of it became, if not inert, at least it changes form enough so that it's acid rain instead of a carcinogen, although acids are carcinogenic, of course. I'm sorry that your garden died, but, we had to save a couple of puppies' lives. Based on the fish die-offs, the chicken die-offs, people saying, hey, there's a chemical smell, I can barely breathe, my skin is irritated, my eyes are burning, I have a sneaking suspicion that this is going to be another 9/11 situation. You'll remember the first responders and people who lived in the area were told, don't worry, the dust is safe. There's no problem. There's no asbestos in it, at least, so there's the saving grace. A shit ton of those people now have cancer or have died. They've got other various problems. There are birth defects that are linked to it. Depleted uranium, Gulf War syndrome, Agent Orange, thalidomide. How many times have we been told by local, state, or federal government, nicotine, tobacco comes to mind. How many times have we been told that something is perfectly safe, everything's normal, go back home and live your normal life, only to find out 20, 30 years later that it doubled the cancer rate or something like that? I think that will happen here in this general vicinity. The fact is that because you've combusted the matter does not mean all of it has seamlessly combusted. It's a 100% efficiency rate. No, some of it was scattered around by the blast, which literally link in the description you can fucking see on the video when they lit it up. There was a blast involved, effectively an explosion. There is now this chemical in small amounts, but it's there, it's measurable in the general area. That's why the fish died, that's why the chickens died, etc. Downwind, you also have secondary effects. They will be more scant, but they are there. You will see a rise in cancer. You will see a rise in probably skin complaints, respiratory irritation for some time to come. Eventually, it melts into the background. That will happen. My strong suggestion, And I'm not the only one suggesting it. There are literally physicians and lawyers suggesting this too. If you're a clanker and you're in this general vicinity of Ohio or reasonably downwind, let's say within 200 miles of this blast zone, and you were downwind at the time that it happened, and you got a little bit of extra, you get something extra in your rain, it smelled a little bit funny, go to the physician and get a full checkup and a full report and document it. Make sure that it's notarized and signed and all that stuff. There will be a class action lawsuit. That is inevitable. It will not happen right away, but it will happen in the future when there is a legit grievance that a court can no longer ignore. Like, hey, an 80% rise in childhood leukemia, 200% rise in pancreatic cancer, or something like that. And you may be the lucky beneficiary of coincidentally getting that down the road at some point, saying, look, I was right in the fallout zone. I got this cancer that's becoming more common because of the exposure to vinyl chloride or whatever at this blast zone. Yeah, I was 50 miles away, but it rained on my property the next day. Ergo, they're responsible. Don't miss out on the fucking civil class action the gravy train. Go and see a physician. If you weren't downwind, there's probably nothing that you can do, even though, of course, it will enter water systems, and downriver, that could be a problem too. I suppose if you're a couple hundred miles downriver, it might be an issue. You might want to see a physician in the next week or so as well. I mean, it's crazy. And it's so obvious, a cover-up, by the way, the behavior of the people there. Not a banned account. Has Biden's leadership inspired aliens to visit? Yeah, plenty of aliens. They're all on the southern border. They come across by the tens of thousands every day. The concern with the Black national anthem is that it is re-racializing and re-segregating society, a trans national anthem, a Mexican national anthem, and so on forth, until we have re-segregation. I will get to that subject. Salte, East Palestine, Ohio. Oh, how fitting of a name. Yeah, wasn't there a novel called White Noise that basically has the exact same plot of what happened there too? I know a lot of people are talking about it, but I've never read it. So, I mean, I wouldn't know. Is that just a meme or is that reality? This can happen. Just look at some of the texts that predicted the Titanic or 1900, The Last President. Transylvania 90. In 1979, a train with hazardous cargo derailed near Toronto. I was amazed by how well organized they evacuated the area, and nobody died. I figured today we'd react poorly to such an event, and behold. Yeah, they did evacuate people, but, you know, the chemicals are still there. Now they're saying, well, you might want to scrub off your countertops. SP Elite sticks to new tech exclusives when we demand it. Yeah, I've considered making an extra new tech exclusive each day since I'm not algorithmically throttled on those platforms, but my schedule at the moment doesn't permit it. I'm doing a shit ton of stuff every day. King of Biltong. Eat the biltong, sir, not jerky. Biltong is closer to prosciutto. Yeah, they've got biltong jerky actually here in the Netherlands, but I don't know the difference particularly. Not a bad account. Do you support the East Palestinian people? Yes, I do. Those poor people. Yeah, little Johnny went fishing. Now all of a sudden he's got gills. Now he doesn't need a fishing line anymore. So, you know, something positive came from it. Professor Enoch 095. Have you heard of Jeffrey's client list leak? I do not know whether the specific leak is valid. I'll look more into it. Silky Johnson, Sticks, my clanker with a hard R. I've always wanted to garden. I have no idea what to do. Any advice you can give? Start off with easier plants, and then that will help to white pill you into continuing, or green pill you. Start off with some beans or something. All you have to do is raise up a little area. You can use rocks, bricks, whatever. Fill it with compost. Put some fucking beans in there. Yeah, you'll see. They will do well. Just keep them watered. Beans don't require fertilizer, by the way, particularly. SP Elite, kind of weird that it spilled in a place named Palestine of all places. Coincidence, I guess, but I bet it definitely messes with the search results. Yeah, it is kind of interesting, yeah. Not a bad account. Should Palestinians be forcibly relocated out? Well, I think these particular Palestinians probably at some point they will, because the government will come in and say, you can't live here because it's hazardous. It'll be like a coal seam fire or something like that, and 10 years later, there'll be 2 old widows that are still living there, cooking their food over the coal seam fire. Rompot Mechanicos, Pittsburgh is 50 miles from East Palestine. Yeah, sucks to be there. Crucial Bunny. That's one way to get people to move to the city. Inquisitor Jack, Glock 17 has a standard capacity of 17 rounds. So that's not actually true, but yeah. Some grumpy goat. Sticks, I love your personal herb garden idea. I have an entire herb selection for both cooking and bartending for cocktails. I have to ask, what is your favorite dish? I have to know this powerful knowledge. Herby dishes. Anything with a shit ton of basil in it. Pasta. Make a pasta sauce with the heaping helping of basil. Basil, by the way, hot summer day. If you have a bunch of basil blooming, oh, you can smell that shit for 100 yards. It's the greatest thing ever. It makes your whole property smells like an Italian pizzeria. Ozzy's Robots, train derailments common 150 years ago. Nice progress. They do still happen, in all honesty, but what I'm hearing anecdotally is that there were cuts, specifically regards to safety at this company, Norfolk Southern. If that's the case, that could be a big class action lawsuit. It seems like there was complicity with the local and state government. Frederick Norberg sent 100 SEK. I think, is that South Korean currency? I'm not 100% sure. My apologies. Thank you, though. No comment. Not a banned account. Will Palestine be allowed to receive foreign aid? Yeah, it'd be funny. Some crazy Russian oligarch sends $1 million to the people in the middle of Ohio, just as a joke, just to get publicity. S.J. Whitney over on Rumble. As a retired railroad employee, I can say with 100% certainty that once a derailment of this happens, the railroad management gets shoved aside as state and Fed service take over. Makes sense. Sigil Stone 17. All this train chemical business sounds terrible. Thank God I live 40 miles away downwind. Yay! Yeah, when your water turns pink, it's a healing elixir. Alchemists probably would pay good money for that. Next, we've got the Black National Anthem. Now, let me talk about this. The Black National Anthem is billed as a Black National Anthem, but it's not really a national anthem at all. It's a 100-year-old song called Lift Every Voice and Sing, which is a hymnal. It was written by a couple of Black individuals back then. James Weldon Johnson and J. Rosamond Johnson, the latter putting it to music. It's effectively a poetic hymnal. This kind of song was exceptionally common in the 19th and early 20th century, patriotic music, basically. The idea of comparing the end of slavery, etc., to Exodus especially, it was very common. The Union had songs that effectively reference this, trample down the presses where the grapes of wrath are stored and stuff like that. I am not understanding why some people are offended by the concept of them singing a century-old hymnal that happens to be written by Black people effectively about, their exodus from slavery at the Super Bowl. I don't watch the Super Bowl, and I'm not going to. I don't have any interest in sports ball. But I've got actual, I think, valid reasons for that, because it's just fucking boring to me. I'm not interested in watching other people be athletic. It just doesn't do anything for me. I have no guarantee that those games aren't rigged anyway, and the losing team always claims that it was regardless. So who gives a fucking shit? I don't care about sports ball. I've got better things to do. I could do something that makes money. I could do something that improves my own personal health. Instead of watching other dudes run around, I could go for a jog. I could spend time with my daughter, with my wife. I could learn a new recipe or something like that. I don't really care about that sort of thing. This is not the thing to get offended over, though. This is not a Black nationalist anthem. Have you heard the lyrics to this particular song? I realize that it breeds the victimhood mentality thing. It's being pushed by the BLM, NAACP types. Please listen to the lyrics themselves. Do they even once invoke being Black? No. They invoke Jesus and God a lot, though, so people who are more on the tradcon side probably should sit down and relax. It's okay. Don't get a moral outrage boner over the fucking Lift Every Voice and Sing song. Yes, of course it's politicized in nature. We're in the era of BLM and stuff like that. There is so much more to be concerned about, like riots and arson and revolving door prison sentences and non-prosecution of violent criminals based on the color of their skin, animus of various kinds. This doesn't show any racial animus. This is a respectable hymnal song. It's more religious than anything else. I'm just not understanding it. I'm not getting why people are getting a hate boner up about this Black national anthem. Who gives a fucking shit? It's all right. It's just an anthem. It's a hymnal. It's like, there's some of these people that get awful hot and bothered if you started, praising Psalms or something. You had a hymnal that was written by a white person or something. But who cares? The fact that the person who wrote it was black and had Exodus in mind and was overlapping it with slavery doesn't mean it has anything to do with the lyrics. Read the fucking lyrics. I have a feeling 90% of the people who heard Black National Anthem to be told at the NFL game, they flipped out and they didn't even know what the fucking song was. They clicked off on the TV remote and skipped that part, and they don't even know what the song's about. So who cares? I mean, which one is worse? Rihanna and her performance, or the so-called Black National Anthem, a century-old song about God delivering the slaves from Egypt? Which, I mean, they weren't slaves in Egypt, but we'll get over it. People back then thought it was true. So, King of Biltong, jerky is dehydrated. Biltong is air dried, i.e., the enzymes and bacteria is not killed in biltong. That's interesting. Yeah, I gotta try your biltong at some point, the authentic shit. I don't know if the local stuff is authentic. Russet talks. I recently found your occult work through an online magic school I joined, the Gray School. Consider me a new fan. Can't wait to get them all. I was wondering, will you have new books soon? I am editing a slurry of literature along with other literary projects. I was contacted by the Gray School some time ago. They wanted me to potentially do a little series and have it as one of their offerings. And I turned it down because I've already covered all of these things. They're in free form. Nobody pays like for a course or anything. I kind of prefer it that way. I have no problem with them. Like, it's a good thing that they've got going. It interests people in, the study of magic and spirituality. That's fine. But I decided just to continue freelancing, sort of. I really don't like the idea of contractual obligations. I am very averse to legalese. Frederick Norberg, what's your take on the Tim Pool, Eliza Blue debacle? I actually covered that the other day. My take is this. I oppose censorship in all of its forms, but I don't have any problem with independent content creators having whatever opinions they happen to want to have. Tim Pool, The Quartering, Brittany Venti, go on down the list. They say whatever they want to say. I look at their material or I don't. It's like a Razorfist, who's one of my favorite content creators. I don't watch his arcade episodes because I'm not into gaming videos. But if he uploads about the historicity of fucking Lincoln or something, damn straight I'm going to watch it. I've watched his Michael Jackson videos dozens of times. Tim Pool's the same. There are some takes he has I disagree with completely. There are some takes he has that I like, and I still watch his content. As far as Eliza Blue, I have no personal judgment whatsoever on the situation. The only thing that concerns me personally, and I like to butt out of other people's business, including many dramas going on, is the censorship angle. Brittany Venti, The Quartering, etc., should never have had material removed and should never have been censored on Twitter based on Eliza Blue's statements and her copyright claims. It was wrong. It should be reversed. Twitter should think twice about doing it again. Beyond that, it doesn't affect me. It has no impact on the creator community. It's just a bunch of e-drama. That's okay. I don't care. SP Elite, you made steak with chimichurri and bone marrow. Interesting. Stormy Nova, the division is not okay. Yes, but the thing is that it's not really a division. The song's been around for 100 years. It doesn't invoke race at all. It's definitely on the mild side when it comes to the BLM antics of the current age. Not a bad account. What guarantees a demon keeps their end of a pact? Their word, of course. Look up the meaning of the word demon in its original Greek and open your mind. Amasang, new gangster name, Arson Nick. Oh, I get the reference. That Manx guy for new kitty litter. Lol. Need a lot of that. These guys are shit factories. They're full of shit, too. They woke the baby up again. Cosmic Surgeon, you didn't even address the segregation comment. You argue for a black national anthem in bad faith. I don't think that singing a song that doesn't mention race is going to cause resegregation. That's what I'm pointing out. I think that it's a lot of hype and hysteria. And if you were to simply turn off the Super Bowl, don't fucking watch it, ignore the sports ball thing, which is going more and more woke anyway, The problem solves itself. Nobody gives a damn about it. It's a bunch of people throwing balls around. Who gives a fuck? Not a banned account. Which of your books teaches us summoning incubi? Various grimoires. You can find them on Tarl Warwick books at Blogspot or at WordPress. The Grizzly, the concern isn't with the song itself, at least for me. It's the way it's being used along with black-only school clubs in Vermont, black-only library sections in Seattle. Yes, I would agree with that. But those are tangentially related. The fact is the song predates the existence of BLM and Antifa and groups like that and dates back to the dawn of the 20th century. It's not the hymnal that's at fault. The people that are promoting the concept as though it's some great togetherness tirade, Martin Luther King smiling down from the clouds. Of course, I agree with you. That side is bullshit. It's cringe, and it's being used to divide people. But the song itself and simply singing it is not dividing anyone. If anything, people are choosing to divide themselves based on their animus towards it. It's a hymn from before anyone currently alive today was ever alive. So, again, I've got bigger titties to lick. D9S, I think it's the fact that they insist on calling it the Black National Anthem. Yeah, well, yeah, of course. If they want to play it, fine, but call it something else. That being said, I don't watch anyway. The thing is that its creators called it that. They meant it to be sort of a black anthem. They tied it in with Jesus and God and the concept of liberation and belonging in the United States. Not exactly the most divisive thing that you could base it on. Clayton Jordan, hi Sticks, I like your shirt. You look nice today. Yes, my Rivendell shirt from Thailand. Sewer Turd, Ari Anthem. Its origin and content is unrelated to the intent behind its current use. Exactly. Your argument is fallacious and contains a false equivalency. No, I am saying that the song itself is not divisive. That's like saying that if somebody sings a song today and 100 years later, some Antifa nerds or whatever turn it into an anthem because they like the lyrics, that they get to appropriate the song and then therefore the song becomes objectionable. I'm simply saying the song itself is not objectionable. Playing it, singing it is not objectionable. The people that are causing it to be played for the purposes they're causing are objectionable. BLM is objectionable. They're a bunch of racists. Antifa and groups like that. The politicians who cling to things like this and use it for some sort of clout, they're objectionable. The people that made the song itself, the lyrics, those are all perfectly fine. It's just an old, century-old hymnal. I don't understand why anyone would have a problem with the original song. Desiccated corpse. These alien UFOs being shot down is a prime example of white privilege and racism against other races. I'm literally shaking right now. Hashtag alien lives matter. Cosmic Surgeon. So you argue for segregation or that it doesn't matter? Straw man much? Bad faith. You're making the bad faith point here. Please, chat, can you please explain to me where I argued for segregation? Or where, by the way, the fucking song argues for that? I condemn BLM. But in my condemnation of BLM, I don't necessarily condemn every instrument that they use for their stupidity. It's just like I condemn people shooting kids, but I don't condemn the gun. The gun's perfectly fine till somebody picks it up and does something wrong with it. This is a nuance that's going to be lost in the perpetual whirling outrage mob. Yes, some of these people are on the right. They're not all a bunch of leftoids. Mostly leftoids, but there is still a remnant moralism on the right that has a knee-jerk reaction, and you'll see people that didn't fucking listen to the song, don't know what the lyrics are or the history behind it. They think that it's the Black National Anthem. It's not even called that. That's not even the title. It's just a moniker that was used. Ozzy's Robots, just boycott corporate swill like the Wokeball. Exactly. Don't watch it. Deprive them of your revenue. Drive their ratings down. Have an anti-Super Bowl party movement. Instead of watching the Super Bowl, I don't know, put on the gardening channel or something. Get together with your friends, eat nachos, and watch old Christmas movies or some shit. Watch something that's actually watchable. John Casamassa, hey Sticks, did you see Razorfist's new video on Trump v. DeSantis? Yes, I did. Any thoughts? I weighed in on that. I had a few points to make. His basic premise I agree with completely. But there is an astroturfing going on that the Razorfist glossed over, just to be clear. No one to you. Sticks' offspring will be dangerous. To AI mainly. Good luck with that, brother. Yeah, I'm setting it up. My daughter will learn how to grow food, my hope is. Inquisitor Jack, check the manufacturer's website. It's 17. Oh, okay. Well, then I was wrong, but you can't have that many bullets in a mag in Vermont. Drift Speed, the chemical spill has lots of occult themes. Go watch train crash scene from White Noise. Adam Driver gives a powerful performance. Bane Post. Yeah, I guess I'll have to look into that shit. Drive-by commenter. One of the AI art proponents, Olivio Seracas, believes algorithmic tagging similar to YouTube, I assume he means pre-adpocalypse, would help address content oversaturation. Possibly. We are definitely oversaturated when it comes to online content. Sigilstone 17 on Rumble. The only offensive thing from the Super Bowl worth giving a shit about is Michael Keaton's ancient ass being stuffed back into the bat suit. Yeah, I didn't see it. I saw a few clips of it from, the Craptovoids mainly. And part of the halftime show, which is, for a pregnant woman, Rihanna did all right, I guess. I would rate the halftime shows. I know I'm going deviating from my script here as far as the tabs go. I would say Prince is number one, and I'll qualify that. Number two was Lady Gaga, actually. We'll be talking about her later. Most of you will disagree with me, but I will qualify. And third is Jackson, and I'll tell you why. Jackson's performance was incredible, but he was lip syncing. Best dancer by far. I don't think that most people would bother to, unless they're trying to be a hipster, they're trying to be edgy and contrarian. Probably not going to say Michael Jackson's not one of the greatest dancers of all time, but he wasn't dancing and singing. Lady Gaga danced and sang and briefly played an instrument. Prince danced, sang, played an instrument, constantly strutting around stage in the middle of the rain. I would put him at the top. Lady Gaga, who can both sing and dance at the same time, and by the way, that does take quite a bit of lung effort, is better than Jackson. Jackson is number three. After that, there's a laundry list of others. I like Tom Petty's show, but admittedly, it was a little bit boring. There wasn't much dancing going on during his. And I'm a big Tom Petty fan, so it saddens me to say that. Ozzy's Robot. So I'm close to buying this 50-acre farm, but I can't work it. Just want it as a bug-out zombie apocalypse food shortage scenario. Any suggestions? If you don't intend to actually really make use of it, that would be a problem because it wouldn't be a good bug-out zone because you haven't prepared anything. You should probably just get a residence. Just upgrade your primary residence as far as the acreage goes and plow in a nice home garden there, wherever it is. Make sure it's in a reasonable climate. You probably wouldn't want to be in New England unless it's in the free state of New Hampshire because the growing season ain't too long. Inquisitor Jack, hopefully Vermont gets smacked down in court soon. Waiting on Maryland's AWB to get knocked down in court. Case currently ongoing. Yeah, I want to see more legal cases against Vermont's anti-gunnery. Sewer Turd, no one here has a problem with the song. We have a problem with its current use. You are making a straw man argument. Steel man it if you give a rip. That's not what I'm doing. I'm simply saying that some people are having a problem about it without understanding the context. I have a problem with BLM. I have a problem with leftoidism, wokeism, and all of the bullshit race baiting that goes on, a la people like Al Sharpton, etc. But the song itself is not objectionable. Its public usage is not objectionable. Again, a bunch of people who I disagree with parade down the streets with guns for the purpose of showing force. Doesn't mean the guns are bad. It means that the people holding them are bad. That's all I'm going to say. I do have other news topics to cover. Winston Fujimori, the salt from some of the chat over singing a patriotic hymn is something else. Exactly. It's literally like, trample down the presses where the grapes of wrath are stored. Thoughts on the national anthem. I personally think God Bless America should be the national anthem. I think they should revert to Hail Columbia, which was the national anthem up until the middle of the 30s when they swapped it out in order to be more, I don't exactly know why they swapped it out. Now Hail Columbia is the vice president's entry song, his theme song. I like Hail Columbia better. It's more patriotic, has more of a revolutionary fervor than the Star Spangled Banner actually does. Look up Hail Columbia sometime. Next news story. Don't let Biden and co. force your nest egg to be invested in woke-only companies. We'll gloss this over because we're losing time here. Yes, Biden wants the Department of Labor to command companies that do the investment thing for retirement funds to do the ESG shuffle. So that means that only companies that are woke will be able to be invested in, generally. The problem is the current wokeness will pass. Like all other fads, culturally speaking, it will pass. In fact, part of it's already passing. Wokeness, A big part of it, 5-6 years ago, was third wave feminism, hardline feminism, man-hating, basically. Where is it now? It's now called far right. It's trans exclusionary feminism. The concept of women on top or whatever has gone by the wayside. It's now considered a right-wing ideology to support women's rights in some contexts. Wokeness will destroy itself. Therefore, if you're only capable of investing in companies that are making a gain because they happen to have a certain number of hirees of a certain political ideology, of a certain skin color, or they support certain causes, that's not a good idea. You're going to end up with people 30, 40 years from now, they've got their retirement account and their retirement account gets wiped out because ESG fucked it. That is what will happen if he happens to have his way. It's the state's attorneys generals, of course, are going to be attempting to injunct this. The rule should never take place. Investment should be solely about whether you can get a return. If the company's woke and you think you can get a return, invest. If it's woke and you think that it won't do a return, don't invest. If it's non-woke, fucking Mel Gibson founded the company, but he has a really great idea. He's got this great new invention and you believe that 1 billion copies of it will sell, invest. Mel Gibson makes a company and you think it'll fall flat, don't invest. It's as simple as that. That's capitalism in a nutshell. Make money, especially when you're talking about the old and vulnerable. Yeah, you're going to rely on that income because Social Security is not going to pay for anything, not with Bidenflation. 6zilla, 9zilla, what would your advice be for who's 26, going to university, but has no interest in the subject and has having financial issues? I get good grades. You're getting good grades, so that's a start. You're going to university, but you don't give a shit about the subject. You can consider switching majors, or you can try to learn skills. Because skills are what you need in order to make money. Colleges ostensibly, under the right circumstances, teach you skills. Oh, you've learned about chemistry and stuff. Okay, you can work in the pharmacy because you know all about the dosages and the different compounds and shit. You studied medicine. You've got the skills necessary to be a doctor. Don't think about education as being anything other than a springboard to doing something. Or in the case of philosophy, bullshitting constantly. Ozzy's Robots, can you recall a fad that infested companies? Yeah, having neon lights as decor back in the 80s. They should have stuck with it. That definitely, the corporate 80s aesthetic, looking like a scene from Star Wars, episode 5. I will simp for that. Yeah, we should bring that back and make it mandatory. Alarian Horizon, remember when Beijing Biden showered with Ashley? Yeah, a lot of people don't. I happen to. Transylvanian 90, this ESG retirement thing sounds like an insider trading scam. Later, we'll find out someone stole billions from old people's funds with this move. Yes, you will. That's the other part of it. It's being considered by the Biden admin for a reason. Do you really think it's to help the retirees? That's not even mentioned in their reasoning behind it. Not a banned account. Will Biden save America's economy with bail-ins? No. America's economy will go on a downturn soon. Well, technically it already is, but more of a downturn. Desiccated corpse. The left eating themselves alive just by becoming more extreme whilst they turn around and call people with common sense alt-right Nazis. Pete Clown World grabs popcorn. True. Next news story. White House climate czar met privately with eco groups pushing gas stove bans. Now, that's interesting. What was that article I read like a week ago? It was collated to RCP of all places. I think it was from Vox, but I can't quite remember. What did it claim? It claimed that right-wingers were falsely claiming that there was a war on gas stoves and that this was part of their evil, misleading culture war. Basically, a bunch of suspenders snappers with MAGA hats are claiming the liberals are coming for your gas stoves and trying to panic middle America. Oh my God, got my gas oven. How will I ever cook again on an electric stove or whatever else I install? Now, the suggestion currently on the table is not a ban on gas stoves. That to be clear, that's not what they're suggesting. What they're suggesting is phasing out new installations of gas stoves. Now, what would this do? Without that extra demand, gas stove companies downsize, less people working there, which will cause unemployment to rise, but Biden doesn't care because he's a grifter. That means it makes less incentive for anyone to continue maintaining those systems. The cost will have to rise. The demand is for the supply of the demand for that service, maintaining them will be lower. They will pay more to maintain those systems, thus incentivizing everyone to go electric. In other words, no off-the-grid stove for you. This should not be adopted as a rule, number one. Although they're not seriously considering legislation at this time, they don't have the votes for it. It should not be considered as a rule. It should never be done. People should use gas or electric or whatever the hell else they want. I would notice that wood stoves are perfectly fine, I suppose. I saw a story literally linked earlier, like less than an hour ago, that UVM is considering getting its heat from the wood-sourced power plant, wood pellet power plant in Burlington, Vermont. Of course, Vermont Yankee's gone now. It's been decommissioned, so they're burning wood pellets. So you're burning a fairly low efficiency biomass for power and then exporting the heat to UVM. How environmentally friendly? It's a bunch of bullshit, honestly. The green energy movement is bullshit for the most part, although there are uses for solar panels, especially off the grid. There are uses for wind. I mean, it's a limitless resource, and under the right conditions, it can be highly efficient, although there are problems with recycling components. There are problems with where the aluminum and other components come from. Under better circumstances, it would be useful. But that doesn't mean gas isn't useful too. It's an energy source. It's there. We've got a shit ton of it. It makes sense to extract it. It makes sense to use it. It's far less polluting than some of the sources of electricity that power the electric stove. I would note that still there's coal, a lot of oil, natural gas too, ironically enough. And then nuclear, which is more efficient by far, but still the ore that's extracted and the rock crushers used to semi-refine it, etc., those are all fossil fuel powered. So there is no replacement for fossil fuels at this time. We don't have the technology. We may develop it. Maybe fusion power really does take off. We manage to warp the laws of physics and we can have limitless power. Maybe blowing a crater the size of Texas in the side of our world, but we can potentially do that. We're making progress. Right now, though, it's not there, and transferring out of gas stoves makes no sense. Dude, I can remember when gas-powered buses were touted as the next big thing. Public transit has just gotten cleaner. They're not using petrol or diesel anymore. They're using natural gas. It is less polluting. I remember Burlington installing an entire fleet of gas-powered buses. That was about 15 years ago. What happened? Fishman, you gave me a big laugh while showering with the bigger titties to lick. Have a good day, man. Thank you. The Grizzly. The blue state governors and blue states will try to push ESG until their dying breath. And the only advice I can give is move away from blue states. I'm moving to Florida, for example. Yeah, I wouldn't move to Florida. It's a little bit too warm for me. I'm thinking about it. West Virginia looks nice this time of year, I'm sure. Journey trials and joy. All these UFO shootings down is odd, especially knowing how the military-industrial complex is war-hungry. What makes this odd is conflicting reports and the interaction with these objects. We won't see. Next, we'll talk about the Paleolithic diet. I'll gloss this over. It's not a significant article, but it's interesting. Apparently, 750,000 years ago, people were already cooking in some form or another. They found fish that had been deliberately cooked. They sampled the materials here. This was actually in Israel at an archaeological site. This is Homo erectus we're talking about. It's pre-human. It's an ancestor actually from very long ago. This is pre-Neanderthal levels. And they determined this because they looked at the mineral composition of the bones. And if the fish is cooked, at a high temperature for long enough, it's going to look different from if it was cooked more gently and the bones were discarded. They determined that it was not thrown in the fire just to discard the bones of the fish. They determined that it was not, simply charred and fell into pieces. It was deliberately cooked. Very, very interesting. I wish that I had a Paleolithic cookbook. And I would note, this has been dovetailed. For propaganda analysis purposes, I will point this out. It is being dovetailed with articles talking about how the paleo diet's wrong. People were actually, and they are obligate omnivores. No, the paleo diet's not a good idea. People eating more raw food and red meat and stuff like that is unhealthy. See, they're wrong. And there have been separate reports saying, they found seeds and remnants of vegetative matter in humans' diets, which is true. People were eating basically anything that they could find because they were a little bit out of their element at the time, 750,000 years ago, with relatively limited technological adeptitude and relatively little social organization. Humans made easy pickings for larger predators. It made sense that they would simply scramble around in the hedges and eat basically anything that they could find. But it's being dovetailed with this as though somehow they were vegans or something. Some of the articles effectively make that claim. But this article is talking about fish, so at most you'd be talking about pescatarians, even if that were true. The fact is that human beings ate everything that they could possibly goddamn find. Ozzy's Robots, Russia's Lavrov, recently said, at least we're not at war with our own people. It sure feels this way with everything culturally going on in the West. Yeah, the U.S. government is at war with part of its own population. I would note that the Russian government is at war with part of its own population, though, as well. Just to be honest and fair. Not a bad account. Would surrendering to the alien UFOs help the economy? Yeah, probably. There's not much you can do about them. Apparently, these particular aliens aren't much ahead of us because it seems that an F-22 can bullseye them out of the sky. It's because they're balloons, but we're being facetious. By the way, please send no more super chats. We're running up towards an hour. Desiccated corpse. You read about Ubisoft implementing a system to notify the police in the UK when you use slurs online? I think this might be used by more companies in the future and may become a thing in other countries. I've warned for years that eventually operating systems will do the same. A good reason to use Linux. It will happen because it can happen and because it will be pushed to happen by the powers that be. Forge and Anvil now goes live Mondays at 8 p.m. Central on Rumble and YouTube. We need all your chats out. Any tips for us sticks? That's Forge and Anvil on Rumble. We read all your chats out, rather. Yes, try to keep to a schedule better than I do. Tech Crisis. I'm waiting for the day when my truck is powered by a nuclear battery. Until then, I am sticking with my old truck. That'd be funny. Not a bad account. It's my money. I'll super chat if I want to. Next news story, again, I'll gloss over it. Elijah Schaffer, of course, a few days ago, he posted a video that was from 10 years ago of Lady Gaga having another chick gag and vomit up green slop all over her. And she looked like she was sexually enjoying it or whatever. I guess it was part of the song theme or something. And it went viral. He was presenting it originally as though it had happened recently. Others spread it around because that's the nature of viral videos and clips and stuff. And I thought it was funny. It's like, number one, it doesn't offend me. Like, again, I've watched grindcore music videos and shit like that, so I'm not offended. I found it funny, though, that the reaction by people about him simply posting it was very visceral. He's talking here about them making death threats against him. New York Post reporting, clip of woman making herself vomit on Lady Gaga resurfaces. Societal decay. Of course, that decay happened a decade ago. Now, I would agree to some extent. While it's not offensive to me, it is rather out there. It's not exactly the most artistic thing that you could have be going on stage, but let's not be hypocrites. Those of us who have listened to black metal and grindcore and things like that, we've seen and heard far worse in the lyrics and in the music videos and so forth. But Lady Gaga's fans, apparently, they're fucking insane and murderous. They would like to harm a person for posting a video that was publicly available and that isn't even from this decade. Interesting. No one to you. Don't tell me what to do. Yeah. Her choker face, blah, 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 blah. Somebody do a cover of that song, but call it Choker Face and just have that particular image in the background. It'd be funny. And then the final topic today, again, we'll gloss over. Ethan Ralph, actually, the Ralph retort on Twitter has been suspended. And I would say this. I oppose flagging things unless they're outright illegal, spam, or botting behavior. So I don't think that he should be suspended because, like, I've followed him and I've seen him say, off-the-wall things. But, don't be a pussy. If you don't like what Ethan Ralph has to say, I would give you the same advice as for literally anyone else under the sun. Leftoids, right-wingers, people who do e-drama, people who don't do e-drama, the young and the old, the black and the white. Don't bother flagging it. Just ignore the person. If they're talking to you and you don't like what they have to say, you can always block them. That being said, I would point out that Ethan Ralph attempts to try to straddle the very line, the very edge of TOS anywhere he happens to be present, which is why effectively now he's on Cozy and Telegram, and with the Twitter deletion, I don't know if he has any other presence available. I would think at some point it would be difficult to like book guests or something like that because he does the blood sports thing, and so I'm not exactly sure why. But I don't want to see anyone suspended from Twitter, no matter what crazy things they happen to say. And some of the things he says, I disagree with completely, and they can be out there. But, that sort of thing is kind of common to content creation. Some people, by the way, a lot of the people that really hate him are sort of pointing out, well, I'm glad to see him gone, but it's kind of bittersweet because now what are we going to rage at? There is a little bit of reciprocity and mutualism that goes into the e-drama thing, where two people, they've sparred for years, they fucking hate each other, but really at the end of the day, if their rival falls, there's something empty about it. And I know this feeling from having helped destroy ICQ chat back in the day, their web-based chat service. I had a blast when I was trolling them. I was leading troll raids from 4chan. I was spamming. I was, ban jumping and doing everything else. I spent hours doing it, some days. It was fun. When they were finally gone, because I had sort of geared myself up into the I'm going to fucking destroy you thing, I took the win and I was really happy. But then afterwards, I'm like, well, now I can't do it again because they're gone. Ah, shit. And then I immediately started attacking InView. But of course, I think they're probably half dead by now, so. BW, what do you think about net neutrality? Do we want it? Republican establishment don't seem to. I'm neutral on internet neutrality as far as that goes because it doesn't seem to have any impact on the actual censorship that's going on. If anything, we need net neutrality for social media sites above some certain arbitrary market share or some shit. By the way, there's almost as many people watching on Rumble as there are on YouTube. Over 7,000 people are watching live. So yeah, I think that I'm going to go offline. Thank you to all of you who tuned in. I will be back tomorrow with another live stream, probably around the same time, a little earlier, a little bit later. I am cramming, though, for the Dutch driving theory exam now, too. So my schedule is a little bit wonky. You've got a child, another thing on your plate while you're doing the morning videos, the editing, the news crawling, the live streams, cooking sometimes because I enjoy cooking, chores around the house, going to the store. Yeah, I fire on both cylinders 24/7. I don't even sleep anymore. I've become a god. That's about all. Peace out.